Yeah, I don't know if I double hit it last time. Right, anyway, there we go. Hey, welcome. We're here. We're here. I've seen a few of you in one-on-one meetings today. Putting in a lot of time or on email. Glad you're here. This is the last crazy. Last time we're meeting as a group. And just 2 assignments left, really. Hector's like, yeah, thank goodness. Thanks, Hector. You didn't say that, but yeah, Ron thinks that's funny. So what are we bringing tonight? What those of you who looked, you know that I have slides and things that I want to talk about, but what are you bringing tonight? I think it's always important to make sure I get with you first. What questions or comments or things do we need to talk about? Levi, stay awake for me, bud. Promise I will too.
I'm trying.
I hear you. I hear you. Slides are in the chat just in case you lost track of where they were. I'm gonna go to them in a minute. Really thank you to those of you who've been coming to class, and those of you who are watching, I thank you as well. I think both ways of participating are valid. Awesome. Glad you're doing them. And looking at everyone on the screen tonight, I've been able to have side conversations with all of you in some way, shape, or form via email, through your documents, or one-on-one meetings, which are still openings for if anyone wants to meet with me to go over their paper, to talk about anything related. I've talked to 2 of you actually already about job interviews. So that's been fairly rewarding for me too, to be involved in that. Let me go to my slideshow so I can get us talking and not me talking. I'm gonna share my screen. You can follow along either way. I don't have strong feelings about how you follow along. Miriam, it may have been you the first night. It was someone who reminded me to make sure that you all can see this. So I'll remember how to do it and do it. Will I remember? Maybe not. Here we go.
Slideshow. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks. So I've got some philosophy of education reminders. I'll go through them somewhat quickly because you've seen them already, but I do want to go through them. I'd like to talk about school shooting, and I know you may not have done the reading yet on school shooting, and that's okay. Either way works, but I'd like us to give a little bit of attention to it. And finally, for the case study, some of you have posted already, some of you have not. We start tonight. Please use the feedback from the last one. You got personal feedback in your email, and you got group feedback on the discussion board. That's all I'm going to say about that. Because I try to be really clear about what I'm looking for there, what we want to get to, and really, it's not even what I'm looking for in this case. It is what the authors are looking for, who created the protocol, the process. And I've had a chance to work a little bit with them on it and make sure that I understand what they're looking for, and that's why I push on you a little bit on that. So that's really, you've got your final paper, which everyone's been deeply engaged in, and you've got the case study that this course is wrapping big time, wrapping up. So you've been so authentically engaged the whole time. Hang in there. I told Levi today, this is the first summer when I'm really feeling this 3-week course has always energized me. I didn't say it that way to you, Levi, but I thought about it afterward. Like I've always been, I'm like, yeah, I'm keeping the pace. Let's keep the pace. This summer I've been like, I'm dragging. First time for 16, 17 years, whatever it's been. First time I've dragged during the 3-week session. And that could be life circumstances, it could be age, but I'm dragging a little bit too. So I feel it. And I hope I'm keeping up with you.
You can always blame us.
Yeah, but I wouldn't because you guys have done such a good job. So Ashley, I can't do that. I can't look any of you in the face and honestly blame you. Yeah. And I wouldn't probably do that, but even if I would, I couldn't. You've been so engaged. So quickly on this final draft, because it is frustrating when you've written a couple drafts, and for some, in terms of the writing process, you're like, I just can't freaking get it right. Well, like I said, I'm always going to ask questions, so I don't know that you're going to get it right, but pay attention to these things. These are drafts, and we've been working on them, and we're tired, but even today I was still pointing out subject verb agreement and things like voice being consistent, and so get after that stuff. The subjectivity, it's gotten a lot better. I want to remind you again, and I'm not going to read this to you. I'm going to just remind you of a couple that I noticed today when going through drafts. Subjectivity has gotten better. There's less subjectivity. Many of you have done a good job of kind of defining terms up front or saying, for the sake of this paper, this is what I mean by this. That's good. Those of you who haven't done it or who still feel me poking and saying, what do you mean by this? As judge measured defined, get on board with giving some definitions up front, some clarity on what you mean. Success is one of them. That's still one we're working on. And then, I say somewhere in here, measure your words carefully, explain what you mean. But I've done a ton of, I got a little bit aggressive today. I think I did a lot of like deleting whole paragraphs from people's papers. I, hopefully in every case I explained why, and mostly what I tried to explain. So if that happened to you, it wasn't just you. You don't have to take my suggestion, but my suggestion in most cases, I hope I gave you the why. And the why was, this isn't the place for this. Your sentence clearly explained this. You need that space because you didn't deeply explain this other thing, right? So that's, and if I didn't mention that, I apologize, because I meant to, but when I did that, it was with, and that's what I look for when I read your writing in a paper like this. I look for, like, is it clearly explained? Yep. Then you don't need the 7 other lines. Is it clearly explained? Yep. Then you don't need the 2. Or did it change the meaning? And for me, reading it, I said that, like, adding this doesn't change the meaning. In fact, it might water down the meaning. So yeah, I tried to get after those things. I think most of the cliche and hyperbole, like, a fabulous job. Cliche and hyperbole, everyone gone. Creative writing gone. Did a good job of making this a much more professional voice. So good job there. Backing up assertions is still hard. Still a little bit of a challenge. And I think there's 2 ways you can go on this. So I'll be more clear than I was in the beginning, because it might make more sense now. One is with a citation, a connection to literature, and the other is saying, it is my opinion that, because those, so be really clear, it's my opinion. Now, in a couple cases with some of you, I said, I understand that this is your opinion, but you just built 2 paragraphs around your opinion and never got anywhere near what research says. So you're not getting away respectfully with just your opinion, right? So I think you can state your opinion, but then also connect to what the literature says about this thing. Your opinion might disagree. That's okay. But when you don't go to anything that is based in literature and research, you're suggesting that your opinion is the only way and is right by default. So be thoughtful about that. There's still a little bit of a couple of you, and I pointed it out, so I won't belabor the point, the fixing and saving, and I'm pushing back on it. I mean, if that's really your stance and what you're trying to do, I own it, right? Just be clear and tell me I'm wrong. Like, don't tell me I'm wrong. You're not writing to me, but don't bury it. If that's your thing, I'm telling you it's not healthy. I'm telling you all the research tells me that fixing and saving and it's not healthy. But if you're gonna do it, be really upfront about it. Push back, do it. The knowledge skills dispositions thing, it's like half and half. Some of us have embraced, actually, you know what? I think all of us have embraced the fact that maybe it's more than discrete knowledge, I think, and or are wondering about it. We're not consistent in our paper. So if you're doing a last run through on your paper, that might be one of the things you look for. Am I consistent in how I communicate this? That's the other thing. Consistency on purposes of schooling. Purposes of schooling is that this is as well as I've seen a group writ large respond to purposes of schooling, really connect to the literature well, and be clear about what they think the purposes of schooling are and or should be. But I will add that, and this is fresh because I've been in them all day. The consistency for some of you still isn't there. In other words, in one place you say this is the purpose, another place you say maybe not a contradicting purpose, but my advice is to be clear about it and then just stay consistent throughout, as opposed to peppering. Here's a purpose, here's a purpose, here's a purpose, and it's like, well, where's the clarity and cohesiveness there, right? And again, these are drafts. I get it. We're at a fast pace. That's why I'm pointing it out. Doing well with the roles of folks, I think. I see mostly active learning. We've taken care of what they want to be. That's been really good too. The active learner. The other thing, as I look at these, the potential thing is gone. The hard work thing, there's 1 or 2 you were working through that. I made some comments. I think we've done a good job with the contemporary nature of things, especially grounded in our history work with the timeline, which, by the way, great job with those. Really, really good job with those. I hope you read my feedback. I hope you took a moment to read my feedback on the timelines. thought we really did a good job at capturing that, and I pointed out where I may have liked to see things different, but you demonstrate understanding to a person. The only thing I'll say here is I think we're still playing with structure. That's the kind of thing where, over the next few days and over the weekend, you can reach out to me and say, hey, I'm still playing with structure. I thought I had learning into fitting into assessment really well, but let me work with you on that. I'm happy to, I'm not reading the whole paper again after that third draft until the final. But structure seems to be flummoxing people in the following way. And I don't know if this is everyone, but I've met with enough people and read enough of them where the learning ends up in like two different places, or philosophy and grounding of personal self end up and in a way that's not cohesive and coherent. I understand if you're threading something throughout, but I see people really trying to play with that structure to make it work. And I very much appreciate that. I would love to help you do that. Transition sentences, outlining really help, but that may be one of those things that you might want another voice or set of eyes on. Oh, Miriam. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Let me float that with the group, because I didn't set it up as that, and I want to make sure that people are okay with that. But yeah, so yeah, I will. Let me make a note because I'll forget that. That's the kind of thing that I'll smile and nod and then forget. I'll work on it. Thanks for the side question. The rest of you hear from me. I think honestly that's it. I mean, you go back through these and run your paper through them, but yeah, multiple conflicting purposes, good. Schooling education, really well. Some of you overdo schooling education. I think you can condense it a little bit, and I told you that, so that's not something. If I told you that, do it. The real world, a little bit better. And then historical context. So that's something that was really improved this week. People added historical context well. That last one, the section, the order of the sections and how you do it. I think that's the one that needs the most work, sort of writ large across people. So, and if that's the case, we talk about. Are there any questions about that final paper? I know that was a brief run through. I have those slides for you to see there, but any questions? I mean, it's so individual at this point. The feedback is.
Just we don't have the instructions up in front of us, so I'm just trying to remember. You wanted it 5 pages?
Yeah, that's actually, thank you, because I should say that. So it's a 5-page paper, right? That means I don't think you can do it in 3, and I don't think you should do it in 8. That's what a 5-page paper means to me. So for those of you who are going, it spilled onto the 6th page. Yeah, we're all gonna live. It's only 4.5 pages. Yeah, you're okay, right? Those are the bounds. Those are the bounds. If I get anything that goes on to the 8th page, I'm sending it back. Okay, so that you just heard that you got a little bit of extra space. Shoot for 5 pages. Shoot for the succinct nature that I told you. I know that it might run over. And honestly, I've had one student, of hundreds ever that went over 7 pages and was doing anything but repeating themselves. In other words, it was really thorough. And I was like, man, you didn't repeat yourself once. And it's really hard for me to, and I've had no one do it. Well, no, that's not true. That's not true. I say that. That's not true. Because I did have a student like 2 years ago now. And so I'm still in my no one. Write a 4-page paper, double spaced. Didn't miss a beat in terms of the rubric and in terms of that is someone who really weighed the value of their words, but it was also someone who knew what they were speaking about really, really clearly. And this quickly in this course, it's hard to do that. That was in a 15-week course. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. How many of you that are here already read how we missed the point about school shootings? It's not, you shouldn't have necessarily already. Okay, good. I'm in some ways, I'm glad. Oh.
Before we get to that, can I ask you a quick question?
Of course you can, Ron.
So I am struggling getting my head around the one bullet point where you talk about articulation of self-awareness and connection to existing schools of philosophical thought. Mm-hmm. I'm not connecting to literature. Is there some literature you could share with me that I could read that would help me understand where you're headed on that particular topic?
Does anyone want to give their opinion or thoughts on that, or you want me to just answer the question directly? Because I can. No one wants to chime in to help you, Ron. If you go to, let me make sure I say the right day, and then I'll share my screen again. Tomorrow. It's tomorrow, and that's why you're still asking that question.
That's what I thought.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense to me. But if you go to day 14, we have building an educational philosophy, putting philosophy to work, reflections on the essence of philosophy. And that is when you're going to read about the various philosophies that you might connect to.
Okay, good.
Yep.
That'll help me.
Yeah, it will. It will. And in my mind, it comes at the right point in the course because you're getting into that final draft of your paper. And so you've got all the other stuff in there. Let's look at that. Let's look at that piece. So yeah, I couldn't remember if it was today or tomorrow, but I like that I have it tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Couple of you just go ahead.
Just a really quick thing. I clicked on day 15 and just to like see what was ahead because my life is getting crazy. And so I was trying to plan. And none of the things you have to view are linked.
That's because I'm creating them as we speak. Those are all
okay.
Created. Yeah, they're all being created. So I'll tell you I'm almost finished with there's two slideshows there. They're almost finished. And then I'm going to record either tonight or tomorrow morning the mini lecture and the final thoughts. So yeah, I want to make sure that I have everything before I record final thoughts. Yeah. Thank you for checking on that. And thank you for your patience. As you know, everything else is posted. Those are actual wrap-ups. So they have to be of a wrapping nature. Take a breath, Miriam. I'm sorry that your life is getting crazy and they're not there and you want to be ahead. By the time you wake up, those should all be there. Yeah. So a couple of you messaged me on the side just now and said you haven't read the articles. You're not supposed to. This is one of those times. Ashley, I joke when I say I tease when I say your name, but I really mean it because you did ask me about this. This is one of those times when I could actually go either way. I could have us read the articles first, or we could do it raw. I've done it both ways, and they seem to work pretty well in terms of engagement. So, in this case, because of the nights I chose based on people's schedules to have class and all those things, including mine, it falls today instead of tomorrow. Before we start talking, and we have 45 minutes to talk about something that is not, and we're on the eve of, are we on the eve of? We are, oh no, we're on the eve of Uvalde, that shooting. This topic deserves an entire semester, if not more, of deep focus. It can't be covered in one night. None of the topics can. But I'd like to use the fact that we have some trust and connection built in this course to at least start the conversation that I hope you can continue elsewhere. I think it's a valuable conversation, and I think in many ways it connects to your final paper in terms of what you believe about schools and the purposes of schooling. I don't know any of your backgrounds and experience with school violence or violence in general. I don't. So I recognize that I could be treading. Please leave if you need to. Please step out. Please tell me to shut up. Please do all of those things if need be. I'm going to be as sensitive as I can. I probably, some of this for me, I was teaching, I don't know, you all don't know this. I was teaching in the shadow. I was in Newark across the river, Newark, New Jersey, from the towers. We could see the towers from our classroom. I was teaching in a school. It was an old bank building when 9/11 occurred. And so the parents of some of my kids in my 4th grade class were in those buildings or on their way there. We actually could see it out our window as it happened. So fairly intense. When I think of school violence, right, and I've told some of you I've been assaulted by parents and by students. The school violence is really big in terms of what it could mean, and it means more than just physical violence. School shootings specific. So I have some, experience in some ways. I'm thankful I've never been involved in a school shooting. I was in a role where I had to create and put into place a school safety plan post 9/11. We were in the middle of gang territory at one point when I was teaching, and there was some violence. There was one Halloween where a gang initiation was actually kidnap a kid, hold him for 48 hours. Kid had to be under 16, I think. And we had parents really scared. I mean, that kind of stuff. So I taught an environment with some interesting things going on around. So when I'm not trying to separate school violence and school shootings, but talking about school shooting is important because there's a lot of misconceptions, there's a lot of misunderstanding, and there's a lot of, I don't know either. I don't know either. I wish I had the answer. I wish I even had the question, to be honest, surrounding school shootings. Because I think other types of school violence and violence in society we have a handle on. We don't have a handle on. We know how to respond to school and how to prepare for school shootings. We just don't seem to, and it gets very political. It gets very personal, and so I want to recognize all that, put that out there, tell you I also have those political and personal things that I bring to the conversation, and yet I still want to start you on it because I'm in schools and people don't want to talk about it. In fact, teachers often make light of the drills because I think it's easier to do that than to deal with the grave responsibility and seriousness of the drills that we go through. So I'm going to share my screen. And again, whether we read or not doesn't matter. In fact, I might lean Ashley toward I like that we're doing it before, but I'm not gonna try to sell that it's super purposeful. This is a newer slideshow that I created this spring to try and get us through some things. And what I want to do is I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Are there 6 of you? I hope. Yeah, I want to split us into 2 groups so we can have smaller conversations. I'm going to use breakout rooms. I don't always do that. Or I haven't done it in this course as much. But I know you can look ahead, by the way. The answers are on the next slide. So I'm aware of that. And if you need to do that in order to be able to dialogue with your peers, please do. If not, though, I'd love for you to try and think about this. Do school shooters fit a specific profile, right? I've got a series of questions here. And what I'd like you to do in your breakout rooms is have a chance to talk with one another about this. You can pass on your 2 minutes. You don't have to say a word if you don't want to. You all have your cameras on already, so we're in a space where our cameras are on, so there's some respect and connection there. I'd like you to go around and get a chance to have an initial comment, an initial response to this. Whether it's because you read the next slide, because you read other research, because you have experience with it, or because you have lots of questions. Keep track of time. What I'd like to do, and I'll keep track of time as well. I just want to keep track of time in your groups, and I'm looking at my watch right now. It's 8:23, or I'm sorry, for you guys, it's 6:23. I'd like to spend about 8 minutes. So by the time I get you in there, spend about 8 minutes in there. So 2 minutes to go around each, right? And then another 2 minutes maybe to chat. We don't need the full 20 minutes with only 3 people. I was hoping for 5, and then we'd go 20. We've got 3, and I think it's actually better. So we'll go 8. Take some time, think about it, and then we'll go to the next slide and talk together as a group. Okay, so I'm going to make 2 breakout rooms purposefully, and let's see what we can do here in talking about this. Sign automatically to create. Okay, head into your rooms, please.
of abuse at home. And so some sort of abuse going on in the family and things that aren't necessarily being handled and taken care of there. I don't know if that's always the case, but that's something that I've kind of heard a little bit about profiles for school shooters.
Yeah, the only thing I can connect is most of them, they don't feel like they fit in somehow. But exactly.
Isolation bullying. But I don't.
It was April 20th, 1999.
99, so from 2007. So like, what is that? I can't do math. Is that like 8 years after the fact? Hello, I can see and hear everyone, but I have no microphone. Can we say that the profile? What? Oh, the profile is male, white, deeply psychologically challenged. Yeah, in my experience of watching Criminal Minds and being a behavioral profiler, an amateur, you know, on the side, I definitely think there are like
cases. So that's another aspect. I don't know if it's necessarily always the case, but there's frequently the case of mental health
Well,
issues.
I think by definition, if somebody's going to do something like that, there's a mental health issue.
Yeah.
So yes, that would be a common issue. Can it be identified beforehand is the question.
I recently read a book that some of the characters were based out of the Virginia Tech shooting, and they talked about their experience there. And it was fictional, obviously, but it made me think a lot about those first school shootings and the people who were in those situations. Because now it almost seems, I don't want to say old hat, but it seems like, oh, there's another one in the news, another one in the news, another one in the news. And we almost have to become a little desensitized to school shootings. Like, they're awful, they're terrible, but like, it's to a certain extent, it's like there's another one, and we're just almost keeping tally marks. Where those first school shootings that were happening, people were so taken aback, and the mentalities of people were completely different than they are now.
Yeah, in the what I did for the timeline, the school shooting for the data I was looking at was defined as like any pulling out of a weapon or a bullet hitting a school, like any of those things, so not necessarily fatal or injuring, but I think there were more incidents than days of school that year.
Which is so sad.
And also in these discussions online, I've seen anecdotally other countries, they have an incident and then they shut it down with legislation and really up gun control laws. And I don't know the specifics, but it seems that other countries have a different response than the US.
Those
First of all, to respond to Greg, I don't know of a time that it has been a female, but you're right, it could be, and
there
stuff
is
like that.
one.
There was one.
Yeah,
there was one recently.
like-
There was a school shooting that was a female who did it. It was
Like-
elementary school.
a couple years ago or within the last like year.
I think I don't
Okay.
remember the year, but it's recent.
But I
Yeah.
didn't want Greg to think we weren't paying attention to his things.
Mhm.
But as a substitute teacher, I've been through a few lockdown drills and stuff like that. And Hector's right. Like nowadays, you're stacking chairs up against doors. The kids are getting far away from the doors, but also like where they're supposed to be. Like I think there's something between them and like an outside wall or something like that that's more difficult to like just shoot through or something.
Can I ask a controversial question?
Well, and
And-
then the teachers also are asked to have some form of weapon,
I was,
like a
do we
baseball bat
think
or
teachers should be allowed to open carry? Like, what's your take on that? And we don't have to get into that if that's too controversial. That's totally fine.
my personal feeling is I don't have a problem with it, other than unless that person is also of the profile, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But more likely than not, I would think that the more that do open carry, I think that it's more of a deterrent than it is uh, a safety concern for other people. Because I think in order for you to have uh, your permit and all that stuff, you have to go.
All teachers who are able to be so brave in those situations. And I know you can't say until you're in the situation, but I'm such a coward. I'm the biggest chicken, and I don't know if I would be brave like some of these teachers that we hear about in the situations. Like, I would obviously want to protect people, but especially since I'm in a high school setting, it's a little different from elementary school kids. Like, I feel like I could protect elementary school kids, but high schoolers, it's like different in my mind. I don't know why. But I just feel like I never know how I would react, but I am kind of a chicken, and I would probably be crying if there were an actual school shooter. I would be just losing my tears. So
Yep.
You're muted, AJ.
Did you guys get at um I heard what you said there, Miriam. Did you all get at should it be our responsibility to shield children, or was it just would you? It sounded like you were talking about shielding children or being brave and protecting. Did you get at should it be our responsibility?
It was
we
more of
didn't.
a
I don't know.
Go ahead, Ron. Yeah.
so this is my philosophy. So at the beginning of the school year, I was telling these people that we went through a drill. And in the drill, the police department came in. They set off flashbangs in the hallway and would run up and down the hallways screaming to be let into your door. And they tried to make it as realistic as possible. The things we were trained to do was stand behind the door, maybe put a barricade up to slow somebody down who could get into the door. If you've got something you can improvise as a weapon, have it there. If they come in, whack them with it. And so we were put into a role where you were a protector in that training course.
Ought that to be the case? Welcome, Kevin. You're gonna have a little bit of catching up to. Ought that to be the case is my question.
In that case, yes. I would agree that it should be, yes.
I feel like the teacher would probably have, well, a lot of these kids have been in school in an era of school shootings. And so they've probably been going through shooter trainings for most of their time in the public education system. And so they have a lot of training probably in certain ways. They've gone through scenarios before, or like fire drills, but shooter drills. And they'll have more experience than me as a new teacher. But I still think teachers will probably be the most experienced and have the most training and knowledge on what to do in those situations.
In the other room, they're talking about should teachers open carry. I'm gonna leave and if you guys want to entertain that or continue this, and I'm gonna close the rooms pretty shortly so that you don't have a lot of time on that one, but I'm gonna leave you to it.
I do not want to open
It's a simple thing, but I've learned that when people come right back when I give the 1 minute warning, they're not very engaged necessarily, but everyone took the full time before they got kicked back. So hopefully that means this is engaging in some way. And again, I know it's a sensitive topic. So thank you. I thought both conversations were rich. I told the one room that the other room was having a conversation about open carry. I didn't get a chance to tell the other room that this room was talking about whether or not it should be the teacher's responsibility to shield students, to rescue students, to save students.
That's what
Sure.
we kind of evolved into.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. So, here's the response and the citations in the slideshow. You know, some of the trainings nowadays are narrowing in and saying there is more of a profile than what this says. There's some newer, this is some of the most comprehensive research this comes out of, and there's some newer research that's suggesting maybe there is more of a profile. But if you look through this and see why, things like one group was talking about maleness, and I quickly shared some statistics about maleness. The idea that overall violence is a predominantly male phenomenon, so therefore this fits with that and doesn't suggest that school shooting is more male than any other type of violence, if that makes sense. And I think that's important to note. I did share the data on females. One of you asked about it. I think historically, or not even historically, since the 70s, I forget what the stat says, but I shared it. There's been something like 13 female shooters. It's a very low percentage of all shooters. So there's that. In terms of demographic trends, you'll note here, and this is what some of the trainings are saying now, that loner thing, that disconnected from community thing, is the thing they find in common more than anything else in the more recent research as well. So it's not necessarily, you see that first line there about races, ages, disciplinary histories, family backgrounds, all that stuff. There's a range, but the isolated, the disconnected from, that seems to be the one that that sticks, and the reason that I share that obviously is because I want you to wonder about that, what that means for you as a teacher in terms of if and how you connect with students and connect students with one another in the community. If that's the common thread, and I am saying if, because really they're not sure. If that's the common thread, and then what does that mean for you all? Right? That's definitely something to think about. What do you want to bring back from your rooms to this room and or ask about before I go on to the next question? Because I don't want to just shuffle you through questions, although I do want you to engage more with each other. Okay, so you started to talk about this. And again, so continue, maybe. You're gonna go back into your rooms. And again, we'll do about 10 minutes. That should work fairly well. Maybe we can give you 8 this time. Actually, I'm gonna go with 8 because of time, because you're already warmed up. What do you think can and should be done? I know you already started to talk about this, but what do you think can and be done to prevent school shootings? I don't mean stop them once they've started. I mean prevent them before they've occurred. Okay, that's the conversation I'd like you to go into. And again, I know some of you are having them ready. Go back in and get into that, and I'll be there with you.
Check in at the office, get a visitor's pass, like I notice that all of it's been a minute since I've been to the West Ada school districts. But at all of the Boise school district doors that are not the main office, it says, please go to the main office to check in. Like you can't get through this door.
It does it West Data too.
It does. So I think that's definitely been a change from when I was in school. It wasn't that rigid of a check-in process. And a flaw I do see with that is, and it happens with me all the time, is I will have to scan my badge to get into the school and someone will just tag in behind me because, I mean, odds are they're not a school shooter, but they'll just float through the door with me because the door's open, you know? And so then they're in the school, even though they are not the ones who got permission to enter. So I think that is a flaw. But other than that, I don't, I guess also preventative measures on like higher ed, like Boise State, like whereas like elementary and middle school, it's contained, and high school mostly, it's contained to one building. So I don't know what it would look like for higher ed.
So for me, one thing I've been kind of playing with in my own head, as far as when I have my own room and stuff like that, knowing that there are always going to be students who either are outliers or want to, or feel like they are outliers or something like that. I've been thinking about ways that I can include them and bring them.
Deterrence.
I don't know if it would be a deterrent. One of the things I think for school shooting prevention would be to really know your students and see who's the loners. Like AJ was talking about, with loners being one of the common threads we potentially think. So I think knowing your students, but especially like by name, obviously, but maybe knowing a little bit about the background and who maybe you need to keep an eye on is going to be one of the best prevention things. If we're students being the shooters.
Yeah, or ex-students in some
Or
cases.
Correct.
One of the lines said from one of the slides, I don't even think I got to read all of it, but was that for rampage shootings, perpetrators often have a sense of damaged masculinity. And I think that I think the commonly used word is toxic masculinity. And this may be an entirely different discussion, but maybe not.
It's not.
Yeah. We need to, both in schools and societies, teach healthy masculinity. And like, I bet I know I have my own like things I've had to overcome, as far as how I was raised and whom I was raised by, and who I've hurt with my perceptions of masculinity. And so we just need to do a better job overall, but that seems to be something that's been politicized and also weaponized to an, well, I don't know about that, but politicized. But I think media might be doing a better job of showing some healthy masculinity in certain areas. I don't know about overall, though. I'm not a media researcher.
Ron, did you have any ideas?
Well, the one thing that I keep seeing is whenever something like this happens, there's a big media uproar. And if the media would just calm down a little bit and not give these people their 5 minutes of fame, I think it would discourage some of this. Now, how you're going to stop that, I don't know, but I personally believe that that's one of the things.
Welcome back. If I didn't say it in the last one, thank you so much for being so vulnerable with one another and so open and honest. It seems fairly clear to me that we share some opinions and some values surrounding this, and also that we differ in some places. And I think you're being really respectful of listening to one another, and questioning and wondering with one another. So thank you for that. Unless I missed something when I was out of the room, I do see us interacting in healthy ways. In terms of what can be done to prevent, and I think I'm going to keep us here. I think I'm going to keep us here in the main room and not send us back out just because of time, and I don't want to rush us into a room to have a small conversation. So hopefully you'll be willing to dialogue with me as a large group. If you go to the bottom of this particular slide, and Levi, you mentioned that I cut it off before you could see the slide before. Remember, we have access to these slides, so you all can read them. But the Say Something campaign that goes beyond just school shooting, and it's about harming themselves or others. Some of you heard me tell a story about a teacher with whom I worked, who had a student write in a journal about potentially harming herself, and the teacher didn't see it. But the fourth, I guess the fourth bullet here, the U.S. Secret Service report included that one, and the following one. One of the things we know pretty clearly, and we see this across the research, is we need to empower students to share things they're seeing, to talk to each other, and to talk to adults. There's some stuff in some of the positive school movements and character education stuff that around tattling, right? And we've convinced kids that tattling is a naughty thing. And undoing that work is sometimes hard, right? And we also tell kids to mind their own business a lot and stay out of other people's business in schools. And there's a fine line there, and I'd say it's less than fine or more than fine, however we want to look at that. But in order to be a community, we have to speak up. We have to speak up for and with each other and to others, and share what we think we see. That's something that's pretty clear through the research on school violence. So I want you to think about that. The other thing I would say is, and I'm adding this in, I mean, this is in other places, it's not in this research, although it actually comes up on one of the other sides. Making an effort to connect with kids And I know I heard one of you talking about some plans that you have for your classroom in terms of how to connect students, and I appreciate that you're already thinking about that. What can be done to prevent school shootings? Really work hard to build community. Really work hard to, I think in my opening video, to to normalize kindness, to normalize friendship, to normalize supporting one another instead of normalizing. And teachers are unfortunately responsible for some of this in schools instead of normalizing teasing. When I say we need to connect with students, one of the best ways we know to connect with other humans is to tease and make jokes and utilize sarcasm. And frankly, we're modeling in those moments when we tease students. And we may not realize it. So how do we normalize being compassionate, being caring, connecting, instead of othering, inviting, and welcoming? How do we normalize that? Right. So that's something that I want you to really think about. As I move to the next slide and we look at the next, hold up, we lost that for a second. Guns. Oh, go back. The last one is, are guns the only threat to school safety? And the answer is no, right? And there's a couple examples here, and there's been I don't have the data on this handy, so allow me a little bit of leeway here. There, in terms of international incidents, I think we see, we say, oh, these things don't people. I hear people say around school shootings, oh, this doesn't happen in other countries. It does. And one of you was talking earlier about they respond differently maybe than our country has. But we've seen knife attacks and other types of attacks, other type of violent attacks in other countries. And some of that I do know has to do with access to guns in other countries. And that's not a political statement, actually. It's just that's what I know from the data is like countries that we say, oh, they've done a really good job of taking away all the guns and making sure people don't have access to guns. Yeah, but they've had other type of violent attacks. So it's not what I want to talk about is I don't think it's as simple as the data doesn't tell me that it's as simple as just gun control. It's not as simple as just mental health. For those people who are, oh, video games, it is a combination of all these things, right? Is we do have to address all these things. And a couple of you said it, this is not like schools handling this alone. And teachers who are not trained in this, and I know somebody talked about like teachers. I think Miriam, you were saying, well, the teachers are being trained. Like a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year vet has been trained, and yeah, they have, but not in terms of what we're in combat, right? Like I hate saying it that way, but I what I want you to think about when we talk about normalizing kindness and those kind of things, schools can't handle this on their own, and putting it back on schools, like, hey, it's happening in schools, you all need to fix it. I probably haven't said this enough in this class, and it's probably a great place to close up. And Ashley, I see your hand. We're asked to do way too much in schools as teachers. We're already asked to be 17 different things. And if we go back to a conversation, Ron, from probably our first week or maybe sometime last week, I've got to send that kid out of class, and I've got to get support from the people in the building who are trained to do those things, right? And that goes to our police who are now stationed in many schools and have been in the past as well. And there's not enough of them either, right? We keep saying there's not enough of. There's not enough school psychologists. There's not enough this. There's not enough that. A question to ask might be, why are schools asked to solve all of these problems? Kids are homeless. Well, we put it on the school. Kids don't have jackets. Well, we put it on the school. Kids aren't eating enough. We'll put it on the school. Put it on the teacher. I resist those things. And I also understand that schools, when you talk about purposes of schooling, you've done the reading, you've done the work. They are a social hub for the community. They are a government hub for the community. There's no question about that. And so where's the place where we can reach most kids in the community? Through the schools. So yeah, but that doesn't make it schools' responsibility to fix and save and do all these things. So I really want you to think about that as you leave this class. Yeah, thank you, Kevin, by the way, for your comment. I didn't get to those in the chat. Sorry, I just saw that pop up. Community needs to play a role. Community members need to play a role. Schools can't be asked to do everything. And that's part of the problem when we talk about our challenges with the system. Schools are being asked to do everything, and everything's being blamed on schools. That's a little bit of the burden you shoulder going into teaching, is that you get asked to do more than quote unquote just, and I want to be careful with that because it minimizes, be a teacher. And I'm asking you to expand the definition of teacher already. When it comes to the school shooting piece, I do worry that we're being asked to solve it somehow. So I'm saying, yes, play your role in making sure kids aren't isolated, right? Making sure kids are connected, make sure you're caring, make sure you have safe environments and that kids are comfortable talking. Play your role in that, but don't allow it to be just us in schools. Go ahead, Ashley. Be mindful of time, but please do jump in.
I don't know if this is the place for the discussion, but I feel like today we've lost the ability to laugh at ourselves and that sort of thing in a lot of ways. We've become very thin-skinned, and I'm wondering, especially related to like what we're talking about with school shootings and the way kids are feeling and stuff like that. How do we balance between telling them all the time that they're wonderful and all this other stuff, while also allowing for them to somehow develop a thicker skin so that they're not going to overreact or to take everything so harshly, I guess.
Yeah, I think I wish we had time for others to respond to that. You're talking about in some ways resilience, right? I mean, that's not the
Yeah.
only word that fits there. What's another word that fits there? Maybe I'll throw it back to you all. What's another word that fits there? Resilient. Humility, maybe? Miriam, you said something, we didn't hear you.
I was just thinking some emotional stability, but I didn't know if that was quite right.
Self-awareness, maybe, right? Some self-awareness, some self-confidence, self-efficacy. I mean, I'm just brainstorming here. And I say that, Ashley, because I don't, oh, go ahead. Throw in another one.
I was just going to say esteem.
Yeah. Self-esteem. Yeah. So then the question comes back to, ought we to be developing those things? If that's right, that's a very valid take, and it does belong in this conversation. So you said you're not sure. I think it does, right? Because where do we draw those lines in a lot of ways? But if that's the case, then how do we develop that through schools? And I don't want to throw everyone's final paper off the hinges here by asking you to think about this too much. If it doesn't fit for you now, or if you please think about it going forward, because I think Ashley, the point there is, what are we developing in schools purposefully and explicitly, and what are we not developing in schools purposefully and explicitly? I'll stand by. I think alongside that, I think both can be true. I'll stand by. I do think we model we do model some bullying tendencies as teachers. I think we do. I think teachers are cliquish. Teachers do a lot of things in schools they don't realize they do. Students see them gossiping, students see them talking badly about one another, about a lot of those things happen, right? And so I'd love to look that alongside the thick skin idea. Like, this is the reality outside of schools, AJ. Like, we're just modeling what other humans are doing. And then I want to push and go, maybe in public schools, we ought to be modeling how we want society to be, not mirroring what we know society is, right? And that is a bigger conversation, Ashley. So maybe you are right there, right? But where does teaching resilience and those kind of things? I shared with two people this week. There's a website called Teaching Tolerance, and it's been around for a while, and it's a group called Teaching Tolerance. And I've always had a little bit of trouble with the idea of tolerance, like, oh, I tolerate you, and the power for that. Like, I have a lot of trouble with. They changed their name in the past couple of years, and they're long called Teaching Tolerance, because people like me pushed back honestly and said, tolerance. That's really interesting in terms of power dynamics and hierarchy. We're out of time, and we're ending on such a somber note, but I want to reframe it in our last night of class to end on a hopeful note, that if we can have these conversations the way you had them tonight and bring it back around to what we're doing, why we're doing, and how we're doing. I do have a lot of hope, by the way. I haven't said this yet in this class, and I am out of time. I've got like 45 seconds. I wouldn't be involved in public universities and public schools, and I've been in public schools for 30 years, if I didn't believe in this experiment, the country itself, and this experiment, public schooling within this country. I full well believe and am invested in, and I do have hope, and I do spend the time and energy with you all because I do have hope. But I think we have to continue these conversations. You need to take them and almost make others have them with you. honestly, within schools and within communities so that we can start to make change and to try to find some understanding, not agreement. That is, I mean, you can shoot for agreement. We're never going to get there. Understanding though of one another for sure. So I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there for the night. Thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging. Sorry for the sobriety of this last topic, but I think it's important. I'll see you on your documents and in the discussion board. Thank you. See ya.
Thanks.
Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely not. It's 9:01. It's 7:01. No, go ahead. What's up, Keith?
I am just super uber behind.
Are you super uber behind? It feels that way though, right? It feels that way.
I feel that
Yep.
in my brain.
Yep. And that's all that matters.
Today's just been a very hectic day.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the quality of work that I'm going to put out for the discussion board tonight is not
Yeah, so do it in the morning. Do it tomorrow.
going to be where I want it to be.
So do it tomorrow.
Okay.
Do it tomorrow.
Okay. Cool. All right. Thank you.
It's a lot. And so when you said that, I had to look at your grade. I'm like, I think you've got like an A-, B+, and you've got a hand assignment. And once you do, it's going to be in the A category again. So like, if we use that as our judge, you're fine. And you're creating quality work and it's meaningful. Right now you feel so tune out, turn off, go away from this course, come back to it.
Right.
Please, and finish up. But no, don't feel the pressure of this course in that way. You're done. Be done.
Okay.
Be done. It's okay. We'll hear from you
you.
tomorrow at some point, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Tune in when you're ready. Of course.
Will
Have a
do.
good night. Yep.
Bye. You too.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.